Hello and welcome, it's Magin Panic here, and today we're gonna try to answer the question what are seamless loops and how to create them. Let's try to answer the question what are loops exactly. So in order to create a loop, you need at least two frames that will play one after another. First, second, first, second, first, second to the infinite. And then you will have a loop. But is that loop a seamless loop? Is the question like, is the strobing light a seamless loop? And I really don't want to jump into that kind of conversation, but in order to create a seamless loop, you need some kind of an animation going on the screen, and this will be seamless loop only if the animation will go smooth. Let's jump and look on couple examples of what exactly can be a seamless loop. So the perfect example of seamless loop is a walking cycle. It can be walking, human, animal, whatever. It can be running, and it can be some kind of special effects. Fire is a good example of seamless loop on a torch. Bubbles, it's a smart thing to create a seamless loop. And also, like a faucet of water, you can reuse it, sparkler, over and over and over, and it can go to the infinite. Also, like a crazy orb things or any kind of an effect that you can turn into seamless loop. And something that I want to talk about more is that ghost dog animation that I did. You can check the animation here. Before you will try to create a seamless loop or a loop or whatever, try to think about the number and just write it down or try to memorize that number up front before you will start animating. And the number will be the number of the frames of how long you want the loop to last. If it's a walking cycle, it will be a different number than if it is like a fighting scene which have to go over and over. If the character is picking something and throwing something and the same thing is going again on the scene, it might takes a little longer time. So if you will be able to create a number in your head, for example, let's say 9 frames for the fire cycle. And if you will create that number up front, you will subconsciously try to get into that seamless loop within that 9 frames. Without that, you might end up in something like 20 or something, which might be pretty too much for something that you want to achieve. And this obviously comes with the experience, but it's a good practice that I found for myself. It's pretty interesting how when I create a frame and I want to reach that frame, which is like 9 for example, I subconsciously know, even if I'm trying so hard, it's much easier to reach that number perfectly. And the second part, which I will talk about later, is pretty obvious. The first frame is not your last frame, but I will talk about it later. On the ghost dog animation, everything lasted 60 frames on 2s. Okay, so it was 30 frames of animation in order to create the loop, and everything, the entire scene was seamlessly looped into 60 frames cycle. I made that number up front I wanted everything to last 60 frames because I knew what I want to do. Okay? The thing that I want to draw now is what was inside of the ghost dog, which was that small blobs, or I don't know, the thing like from the lava lamp. That was the idea. So I'm going to create just one frame, and this is how it started. I created just one frame. Let me put a drawing marked as key drawing, and this will be my main thing. I'm going to create like a 40 frames loop on twos. So in order to create 40 frames loops, I'm gonna put this frame on the 41st frame. And what I'm going to do now is I will open onion skin and I will draw a couple frames. For this animation of the ghost dog, I didn't thought about creating like one motion like perfectly smooth, but I allowed myself to create like a free, like drifting kind of thing that can speed up and slow down whatever I want, which gave me a lot more flexibility and I could think about it much less. Let's check it out. I have the first frame and I started slowly moving it somewhere. Then I could speed it up, even stretch it a little, and then I could slow down. Okay, it's not done on 2, so I'm gonna exposure to 2. I'm gonna bring this back to my 40 frames. Okay, and now I see, if I will extend this, how far exactly I am from the first frame. And at this point, I knew that I want to go to the left side of the screen and I will have to go back exactly to that first frame. And from now I can create even more, I can duplicate even more frames, and I can view a little more on the left and on the right, and now I pretty much know everything what I have to do. So from now I'm gonna move 2 frames at a time, and I will go anywhere to this point. Then I will obviously slow down a little to reach this point and extend the missing exposure. And this is the part where I said about the first frame is not your last frame. I see so many videos on the internet that does something like this is the first frame. Let's disable the onion skin, and this one is the last frame. Okay? And what it will does for the animation, you will have this first frame at one time of the loop for 3 frames instead of 2s. And this is sketchy, and you want to avoid it very consciously. So if you are working on the scene like this, when you just want to have enough or like all on the screen which contains the last frame here, you have to be conscious to render it without that last frame. And it is obvious, but it's a thing that I have to talk about. Let's play this in a looped order. And as you can see, it's slowing down in 2 parts, speeding up in 2 parts, and it's seamlessly looped. And that's how I created the ghost dog animation inside, which have 52 layers of that kind of animation. And some of the animation was actually like a crazy ones that treated that 60 frames like 120. And how I achieved that? It's pretty easy. Let me dive into it one more time. How about taking this guy here, split into something more, like I will start detaching something on the very back, okay? And I will go with it as fast as I'm going with the one on the screen, but I will turn right away faster. I'm not keeping the volume, it's not important right now, but I just wanted to show you how you can approach something that looks like 60 frames, but it's not actually 60 frames. So at this point, I'm at the moment where I supposed to finish this loop. Okay, but I obviously don't want to do it because I want to squeeze 120 frames into 60. And I'm just going to create an animation that will be longer than 60 frames within this 60 frame loop. Okay, so let's move forward with this animation. And let's try to avoid everything. Turn there again and speed up one more time because it's pretty, or maybe that will be a good idea to connect it somewhere here like this. So now it kind of swallowed this thing. So let's place the loop again and let's play the animation one more time. Now I kind of break the 60 frames loop into 120. Right now you can't say actually if it's 60 frames loop because it's a way more variety within it. And from my point of view and from what I saw in the animation, making that kind of things of small details going not into the amount of frames into your loop but stretching it into 2 of them. It's a very smart move and it works really appealing. So let's zoom everything one more time. The most important thing for me is to make up a number up front. Stick with it for the entire animation and subconsciously and obviously consciously try to get into that number of frames, obviously. The second important thing is the obvious one. The first frame is not your last frame. The third thing is that you can actually squeeze more than your loop inside your loop with doing smart choices inside your animation. Overall, think, plan, and work smart. What is very funny and important for me, and I saw it at some point in my animation career, I tried to push everything to create a loop. As I said before about the character who picks up something from the ground, throws something, and the same thing appeared on the screen, because someone throw it inside of the screen that you can see that other person. It's a smart move because loops keeps attention of the viewer much more than a simple animation. If you will put an animation of 6 seconds where someone picks up something, throws, and this is the end, and at the same time you will have a loop where something again goes into the screen and the character picks it up, the viewer that wants to consume your content, this is the trick I'm giving for free, so valuable, oh my god. So the viewer will not stop watching after the 6 seconds, but it will be stretched until he will recognize it's a loop. So it will be like 9 maybe. It's a good thing to think about. And I really encourage you to try to make loops whenever you can. If you have something going on in the screen, try to loop it just for you. Even like a more experience, like another thing to think about and make things just a little more complicated. Not much, just a little. Why those infinite fight scenes are so entertaining? Because they are infinite and you can watch them over and over and over. That's all I want to say. So think, plan and work smart. I'm Panic, and it was a little rant about seamless loops. Have a wonderful day. Cheers!